You ever seen someone save a man's life, only to get shackled for it? No, really. I'm not joking. It happened right there in a courtroom in Stillwater County, Michigan. Monday morning, routine juvenile docket. People half asleep, lawyers flipping through files like it's just another day. But not for 14-year-old Neveah Cole. She was just sitting there quietly, hands folded, trying to stay small. Just a kid. No one noticed her. Not the judge, not the clerk, not even the bailiff. And then it happened. Judge Douglas Harlan, big name in the county, strict as a stone wall, was in mid-rant, lecturing some teenager about respect and personal responsibility, when his voice caught, his eyes went weird, and his gavel just slipped out of his hand. You could hear it hit the wood like a dropped hammer. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a choked sound. Then, boom! His whole body just collapsed forward on the bench. Dead weight. And for a second, just one long second, no one moved. Then it was chaos. People screaming, papers flying, deputies panicking. But Neveah? That girl didn't blink. She launched out of her seat, darted past grown men 3 times her size, climbed right up to the judge's bench. "He's having a heart attack," she shouted, her fingers shaking as she checked his pulse. "Someone help me!" The bailiff hesitated, like he didn't know what to do with a kid on the judge's platform. But Neveah wasn't waiting for permission. She opened his collar, tilted his head back, and started compressions right there on the bench, just like her mom had shown her when their neighbor collapsed on the porch years ago. She was sweating, whispering, "Don't you die on me," while everyone else just stood frozen. And then, just as EMTs crashed through the doors, Judge Harlan gasped, one big, guttural breath, like a second chance crawling back into his lungs. The paramedics took over, loaded him up, but before they rolled him out, one turned to Neveah and asked, "Who are you, sweetheart?" And she just said, "Just a girl who didn't want him to die." Now, any decent person would have thanked her, right? Yeah, well, that's not what happened. Because not 5 minutes later, as the shock faded and the room emptied, one of the deputies walked up to Neveah, cold stare, hand already at his belt. "You shouldn't have done that," he muttered. She blinked, confused. "I was just trying to help." "You don't get to run up on a judge like that. Doesn't matter why." And just like that, he grabbed her wrist and slapped cuffs on her. A 14-year-old girl, still shaking from saving someone's life. Charged her with obstruction of justice. No joke. People started shouting, "She saved him, are you serious?" But he didn't care. Just marched her out like she was some threat to national security. Her mom, Renee Cole, came running, screaming, crying, but the deputies held her back. It was like watching a nightmare unfold with your eyes wide open. Now listen, what happened next? That's when things went from absurd to straight up ugly. They tossed Neveah into a holding cell, no phone call, no explanation. Hours later, that same smug deputy came back with a manila folder and a look that could curdle milk. "Looks like you've been busy, Miss Cole," he said. Inside, allegations from a month ago, some shaky video, someone claiming she threatened another kid. Total fabrication. But they didn't care. They wanted something to stick. And here's the kicker. Judge Harlan, the man whose heart she restarted, he came back 2 days later like nothing happened. No thanks, no recognition. And when Neveah stood in front of him in court, he looked at her like she was a stranger. "You again," he muttered, flipping through her file. "Another one who thinks the rules don't apply." She whispered, "I saved your life." And for a second, just a second, something flickered in his eyes. Shame maybe, or fear, but it vanished. "I don't need a reminder of my weakest moment," he snapped, "and I don't take lectures from children." Then, just like that, he slammed the gavel down. No bail. Remanded to juvenile detention pending sentencing. It echoed like a gunshot, and the whole courtroom just went silent. Except for Renee. That woman, she didn't leave quietly. She marched to the front, held up her Bible, and shouted, "Put it on the record. My daughter saved that man's life, and he just sentenced her to lose her own." Nobody dared stop her. Not even the clerk, who suddenly couldn't type fast enough. And outside, oh, things started buzzing. See, what no one knew was that a janitor named Mr. Leonard, quiet man, invisible for 20 years, had filmed the whole thing. Not for drama, but because he'd seen enough of these so-called justice days to trust his gut. He leaked that footage, and it went viral. News outlets blew up. Headlines rolled in. Teen girl saves judge, then gets arrested. Did he punish her to protect his ego? Talk shows, podcasts, even CNN. People started asking questions, real ones. And then, boom, whistleblowers stepped out. A retired court clerk turned over 200 pages of handwritten notes, stuff she kept hidden for years. Things Judge Harlan said behind closed doors. Rulings that didn't make sense, sentences that didn't fit the crime, especially when the kid in front of him was black. But that wasn't all. Someone dug up an old case. A name. Elijah Prince. Sentenced by Harlan at 13 for trespassing. No release date ever logged. Just gone. A federal agent got involved. They found out Elijah had been quietly transferred to a youth reform facility. No therapy, no visits, no contact. And one incident report, barely legible, mentioned head trauma, transport, and no record of return. That wasn't discipline. That was disappearance. And it all pointed back to Harlan. Turns out he had a little arrangement flagging problem kids to be removed from the system entirely, especially kids from those neighborhoods, as his emails put it. No code, no veil, just straight-up institutional cruelty. So they came for him. Early morning, his cabin in the woods, feds knocked. Harlan opened the door, didn't say a word, just nodded. I knew you'd come. He was charged with conspiracy, civil rights violations, and obstruction in a juvenile death. And Neveah? She was still behind bars, until Agent Monroe walked in one day with a court order signed by a federal judge. Neveah asked, "Is this real?" Monroe nodded. That night, Neveah walked out, free. But she didn't disappear. She stood in front of crowds at City Hall, not yelling, not angry, just present, calm, powerful. And when she spoke, she said, "I'm not just here for me. I'm here for every kid who disappeared behind a courtroom door." The crowd didn't cheer. They stood in silence. Because sometimes, silence says it louder. 1 week later, a memorial went up in Jefferson Park. A black granite pillar with Elijah Prince's name carved deep in the stone. And when Neveah stood before it, all she said was, "I hope every judge who walks past this feels the weight of their choices." And that was enough. Now tell me, what kind of world tries to break a child for saving a life? But more importantly, what kind of world stands by and lets it happen? I want to hear your thoughts. Was justice served? Did the system redeem itself? Or did it just get caught too late? Drop a comment, speak up, because silence is what they count on.